Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Good evening and welcome, Cavs fans, to another edition of the Block the Shot to Stop NBA Weekly. Here with Skylar Webker. I am Kevin Lynch. We missed you guys.
This has been a long week.
Yes, it's been a long week. The Cavs, their longest break of the season, 5 days between games. And, we decided first to take a little time off ourselves and then decided we couldn't wait one more day. We're going to throw together a quick episode, kind of just a check-in. The Cavs, basically, we're a quarter of the way into the season, kind of see where they are to date, and then kind of where they're going, at least in the short term. We're kind of the NBA loves breaking their season up into segments and into quarters, just like they do for games, right? And we've just passed the first quarter of the season. Realistically, probably couldn't have hoped for much more from the Cavs other than an appearance in the NBA Cup, which we'll end on here in this episode. But Skylar, let's start here. Like when you think of the Cavs through 24 games, I think we're at now, 25. What are your first couple thoughts of the season so far?
I don't know if anybody can expect to come into the season and be as hot as the Cavs have been. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the fact that they've gotten off to a blazing hot start, cooled off with a couple of losses here and there. Mm-hmm. But all in all, I mean, you really couldn't ask for anything better.
You really can't. And as far as like storylines, I guess for me, when I'm thinking of the Cavs, let's start here. I mean, Kenny Atkinson is one of the big storylines. We've talked about him a lot on this podcast, as every Cavs podcast has, because he's
the only thing different between this year and last year.
Yeah. He's the one, like, personnel different, or the major personnel difference. I think there's a lot of things different with the team as far as like giving players credit for their development, the schematic stuff that they're doing, which is, Kenny Atkinson obviously has a big hand in. But what, I guess, did you think in your wildest dreams Kenny Atkinson could have this much of a positive impact on the Cavs, and in particular the Cavs offense?
I knew that I knew the offense would tick up, especially because he has a bit of continuity with those Brooklyn years with LeVert and Jared Allen. So I figured the offense was going to tick up for sure. I was very nervous that our defense was going to fall off a cliff, because that's what JB Bickerstaff is coaching plan and, coaching style was to be very defensive heavy. And we haven't really seen that. I mean, we hit a little slump there for a while where our defense was kind of middle of the pack. But I think we're still like within the top 10 of the league in defense.
Yeah, you're right. Cavs have kind of fallen, or like they either just jump into the top 10 or just out. They've kind of settled in that, like, maybe 9 to 12 range as far as defensive rating, which when you have the best offense in the league is plenty good enough on defense. And let's talk about that offense. So they did just get passed by the Memphis Grizzlies for most points per game, but they're still second. They're averaging 121.5 a game. But they are still number one in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, 3-pointers made. And when you look at this team, I guess on the surface, you're like, how does this happen? But then the deeper you go, it starts making more sense. They just have They have a lot of like good and a few really good 3-point shooters, but they don't have any bad ones. They don't have any Russell Westbrooks shooting 5-6 threes a game at a 28% clip. And then the field goal percentage, when Evan Mobley developing the way he is, Jared Allen still for the season being a big part of the offense, even if he hasn't been as much lately. Those are going to be really high field goal percentage guys and kind of lift up that team percentage. So it does make sense. I think the thing that if we're talking good and bad, like the one thing that concerns me, they were early in the season, they were like a top 3 team in assists and passes per possession and things like that, where they have fallen a little bit back there. I think we all were in love with the Kenny Atkinson offense, but is this offense now settling more into a traditional NBA offense, maybe not as, I don't know, unique and kind of is sharing, everybody gets the ball, the ball's skipping around as it was the first maybe 15 or so games of the year?
There could be part of that. I think I brought it up the last time we talked. I think the league is just starting to attack the Cavs differently, and they're trying to adjust. Part of that being, a lot of guys staying in the lanes and playing against the Cavs in kind of a zone defense, so that they can't really get these assists as easily as they were at the front half of the season.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I still like those assist numbers to go up.
Yeah. And they're not terrible. They're 7th in the league. So I'm not I'm not saying the sky's falling, but they were comfortably in the top 3 for a good part of the year and just slid back recently. So that's why I was calling it out.
Yeah. I think it's just the league catching up to the Cavs, and taking the Cavs seriously. I think a lot of people thought maybe the Cavs were a good team, but definitely not a top 2 team in the league.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think the assists, and even though they're still number 1, the field goal percentage, it has come down a little bit, but still can't complain about it being the best in the league. But I do think it's because the number one things that teams are taking away is the roll on the pick and roll. At the beginning of the year, Mobley and Allen were rolling to the hole and getting so many dump offs and big dunks or, easy labs off of that. I do think that's the number one adjustment that teams have made, is they've made sure to either stay with the big guy on the roll or rotate someone over and take away some of the, the Cavs easy buckets there. And again, the Cavs offense has still been really, really good, but I'm interested to see, especially after we come out of this break, if there's anything Kenny Atkinson does to try and kind of open that part of the offense up again.
Yeah, that would be great to see, because you're right. They were rolling to the rim, just getting easy dunks, and even if they weren't easy dunks, being able to kind of get it inside and pass it back out as soon as the defense collapsed. Those are things that I'm very interested to see how Kenny Atkinson adjusts. One thing that is kind of interesting is you talked about how the Cavs are first in the league in field goal percentage and 3rd in the league, or first in the league in 3-point percentage. First in the league in 3-point percentage. They're middle of the pack at attempts. So the shots that they are taking are good shots. They're not Boston, who are very good at making bad shots.
Well, you have to shoot less shots when you're making more of them. So
that's true.
But you are right on field goal attempts and 3-point attempts per game. They are more middle of the pack, 10 to 15 range. And again, that is because they've shot at such a good percentage. And one of the nitpicky things about the Cavs, they haven't been quite as good a rebounding team as I thought they were going to be, particularly offensive rebounding. You would think with starting Allen and Mobley, that could be a strength of theirs. Now, again, they're shooting the heck out of the ball to over 50% as a team field goal percentage. But that is, one, if I'm looking at stats, I would say the most surprising, stat is around the rebounding. The Cavs are 18th in the league in total rebounds per game. They're really low on offensive rebounds. I think they're 20. They're 25th. They're only and so that is one thing. And I think part of it may be, they're playing so much time with only one big guy, and the lack of they have a lot of swing guys, but guys, they're not exactly power forward swinging up to playing power forward and everything. So I guess the more I think about that, I'm not totally surprised, but you would definitely think this team is better than 18th at rebounding in the league, and definitely better than 25th at offensive rebounding.
I wonder how much of that, I think you and Tim talked about it after maybe one of the Hawks games, how much of that is just the league being a 3-point shooting league now.
Yeah.
And with those, you're not getting rebounds at the rim. Those rebounds are long rebounds, and having kind of an undersized backcourt has to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I again, we're nitpicking. They have the best record in the league, and so and from here we're going to go into a whole bunch of positives. But that's really, if we're looking, from both from a critical lens as well. The two things I'd like to see the most are the things we've talked about, getting the big guys more shots at the rim, like they were the first part of the season, with ideally off the pick and roll, if not, setting them up some other way. And then I'd like to see the rebounding tick up a little bit. Again, when you shoot the ball so well, there's less opportunity for offensive rebounds and everything. But I still think this team should be knocking on the door of top 10 or in the top 10 for rebounding.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially defensive rebounds, for sure. Because you're right. With offensive rebounds, they're shooting over 50% right now. Right. So, it's a 50-50 shot of getting, any type of cleanup, which is, it's less opportunities, like you said. So
right.
Especially our defensive rebounds, stop the second point or second possession from the other team. I think that was kind of a killer in kind of the Hawks games, in that last game. So with the Heat. So
again, we're picking at nits for the team in the league with the best record. So let's talk about some positive, and let's talk about the players through the first 25 games. Overall, the Cavs have 6 guys averaging in double figures, 5 that are probably the 5 that everyone would have named before the year, knowing that Max Strus hasn't played yet, and the 6th being our beloved Ty Jerome, aka TJ Maxx, still averaging over 11 a game on really good shooting. Has had a few less productive games lately, but still overall, he has to be the biggest surprise for the Cavs so far this season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you had no idea what you were getting back from him after missing all of last year with, I think it was an ankle or Achilles. I can't remember.
Ankle, yeah.
Ankle. Okay.
Yeah.
So you really didn't know what you were getting out of him. If I'm being honest, I'm sure the Cavs front office was looking at it as this is a salary we can trade off and dump so that we get under our luxury tax or get under the first apron.
Yeah.
But now, I don't even think you can do that because he's been so spectacular, playing so well, giving this team just everything that it needs.
Yeah, I agree. And Caris LeVert, when he has played, has been, exactly who you would want him to be for this team and everything. But him missing a little bit of time, I actually think the biggest impact guys off the bench so far this season are either Ty Jerome or Georges Niang. I think as far as what they have contributed in a little bit different way. Niang, Niang averages over 8 a game, but he's just the junkyard dog that does everything that you need him to. Plays an undersized power forward, and I think, but those 2 guys, I think, have been the 2 biggest surprises on this team and absolutely instrumental in the success they've had, because not only have they contributed, but because they've contributed, they been able to keep the starters' minutes down. The starters play, more games maybe than they would have played. They don't take as many nights off if they're only playing 30 minutes a game. I can't say enough about what those two have brought to the table versus what we expected of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, with Niang, like you said, he's the junkyard dog. He's like the he's not afraid of anybody. Like he'll bark at refs, he'll bark at the other team, he'll dive for loose balls. Like he plays like he's invincible out there.
Yes, he does. He does. And I wanted to bring those two guys up because I got like a few segments, and I think those two, pick your poison, but those two are far and away the biggest surprises and pleasant surprises on this Cavs team. I'm going to ask you maybe the toughest question I've asked you on this podcast so far.
Oh no,
Skylar. Through 25 games, who's the Cavs MVP?
I gotta give it to Evan Mobley. I think this team goes with Evan. I know and maybe it's skewed because we're also seeing that leap that we've been wanting from him.
Yeah.
But we knew what we were getting out of Donovan Mitchell. We know that he can take over games, but to see how Evan Mobley physically changes how the other team plays, like the other team has to make adjustments for Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
They're not doing, I think Donovan Mitchell kind of gets we'll let him get his, don't let anybody else beat us treatment. Where other teams are actively trying to stop Evan Mobley, and so far through the season have not been able to.
You're right. And to me, it's a really tough question. I was pondering what my answer would be as I knew I was going to ask you it. And honestly, you could make an argument for Darius Garland in this question as well. I think, him missing so much of the last year, and then when he did play, being pretty compromised. And the first, I keep wanting to say the first half, the first 25 games contribution he has made. I think he's playing as well as he ever has. And I'm probably going to agree with you. Part of me really wants to agree with you, Evan Mobley, but part of me wants to give it to Donovan Mitchell because all of this works because Donovan Mitchell is an unselfish superstar.
That's true.
And if he was the type of, and there's those types of guys in the league that demands that he gets X amount of shots every night and the offense runs through him, all the time and everything. If he was that type of superstar, Evan Mobley wouldn't be rapidly developing the way he is. Darius Garland wouldn't be having this enormous comeback season. All these guys, even these guys on the bench, wouldn't be making the contributions they were. But Donovan is so willing to play team basketball, play within himself, look for all kinds of ways to contribute other than just points. And Donovan Mitchell, he's not going to make an all defensive team, but has been so much better defensively this year than he has any of the last years, dating back to his last couple of years in Utah. I'm tempted to go back to Donovan Mitchell, and I guess, I'll go with Donovan Mitchell. You go with Mobley, and neither of us are wrong. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds. He was my number two. I think the other thing, going back to Donovan Mitchell being so unselfish, I think him choosing to stay and just quieting all the storylines outside of basketball around this team has tremendously helped. There's no more speculation about who's going to stay, who's not. There's no more of that. So this team gets to just be the team that is assembled, and gets to be, the best team in the league.
Yes. No, you're right. Okay. Next topic. I'm going to give you 6 guys on the roster. You just tell me what these 6 guys have in common versus the rest of the roster, right?
All right.
So Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Karis LeVert, Ty Jerome, and Isaac Okoro. Those 6. Okoro, LeVert, Jerome, Mobley, Garland, Mitchell. What do those 6 have in common that the other guys do not?
I feel like you're going to get me with leads the leagues in plus minus or something.
No. They're all shooting above 40% from 3, which 40% is, if you're over 40%, you are teetering into excellent 3-point shooter. Now Mobley's doing it off of significantly fewer attempts and everything, right? But but the
I
other
was surprised
guys,
that Garland was still up there because he's had a couple of bad
he's
3-point shooting
he's
nights.
still at over 42.5%.
Wow.
Granted, he was up over 45 a few games ago. But yeah, I mean, Ty Jerome at 47, Karis LeVert at 48.5, Isaac Okoro over 46, and both Mitchell and Garland at 41 and 42 respectively, with the amount of threes between the two of them. They shoot 16 threes a game, and they're shooting it over 40% between the two of them. That's so huge in today's NBA because the 3-point shot is, love it or hate it, it's more a part of the game than it ever has before. It's essential to be able to shoot and stretch the floor and open up the driving lanes, open up the lanes for the big guys. And the Cavs are doing it, frankly, significantly better than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I did not know that they were shooting as high as they were. And yeah, I mean, it's today's NBA. Some teams live and die by the 3-point ball, and I'm glad the Cavs aren't, one of those teams. They can beat you in different ways. But yeah, you can't just not have a 3-point, game in this league. So it's awesome to have multiple guys over 40%.
For sure. And just so I don't get anybody come at me, shout out Craig Porter Jr. is also shooting over 45%, but he's only taken like 12 this year. So I didn't throw him in with the other guys just because of the lack of volume. All right. Some of the other things I want to talk about. I do think Jared Allen is the unsung hero. He's definitely the fourth of the big four that everyone, he's the quiet one. He's the guy who you're going to run the least amount of stuff for and everything. But his production has declined a little bit, specifically offensively lately, but overall season to date, he's been outstanding, and possibly with all the other injuries, possibly even has a case to be an all-star or borderline all-star when you combine his defensive contribution and frankly the lack of the lack of good big guys in the Eastern Conference right now.
Yeah, I think the only competition he really has is Bam.
Yeah.
From the East, at least, Porzingis maybe now he's back, but
and Cat will be an all-star for sure.
Yeah,
from the
that's
center
true.
Position. He'll probably.
But I didn't know if Cat was going in as a center or a power forward.
He's played center this year. He was power forward last year, but I think they'll give him center this year.
So yeah, I guess you got kind of a three-horse race right there, or four if you want to put Porzingis in, but Porzingis kind of just got back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he'll have the time in unless he's just sets the world on fire in between now and the All-Star break.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. But I'm just kind of scanning the standings and thinking about it. I'm not sure who else. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of guys, but Jared Allen, he has been overall, he has been great. I'd love to see his scoring tick up. I'd love for him to be over that 15 points a game, 16 points a game that he was for most of the season. I think that's right where he should be with this Cavs. That means he's getting enough offense, but if Jared Allen's taking 20 shots, it's probably not a good thing for the Cavs. But yeah, I still love the way he played. And then kind of rounding out overall through 25 games, the bench has been outstanding. They did tail off a little bit here recently where they got outplayed a few games in a row. I was noticing had a really big bounce back game against the Heat. The bench did, even though the Cavs lost. I think it was the first game of the season that the bench outscored the starters on Sunday. And so overall, the bench has been phenomenal. Lots of different guys have made contributions, and I almost consider Okoro and Dean Wade as part of that bench because one of them's the fifth starter, but really the bench is everybody outside the big four to me.
Yeah, I mean the fifth starter is really just because Max Strus isn't playing yet,
right?
So I would agree that those guys are bench are part of the bench mob. I brought it up earlier in the season. Like, I don't know if any team in the league has a bench that could flip a game like the Cavs do. Maybe Boston, because they got a couple good guys on their bench.
Well, I think the just the amount of guys and the balance on a bench is what sets the Cavs apart, because a lot of teams have a couple really talented guys who, coming off the bench. When the Cavs are regularly play 10, 11 guys and they on any given night, and two of the bench guys have high contributions, and the fact that it could come from so many different sources, I think that's kind of what puts the Cavs bench apart.
Yeah. Especially, and we I think I maybe brought this up before with you, how much leash do you start giving these guys, knowing that, they're the depth is there. Like, if somebody's slumping, like, there's somebody immediately ready to take over whatever those minutes are. So a Sam Merrill or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it will be really interesting. We'll talk. We can talk about it for a minute here, but I'm sure I was going to save, what happens when Max Strus comes back after we actually see him. He is going to be on the floor tomorrow, first action of the year. I'm sure he'll be on a minutes limit, and they're going to build him up over the first couple of weeks or so. But your instant reaction, like, once Max is back, and you would think playing in the 25 plus minute a game range, who do you think minutes those come from? Do you think it's like a handful of guys each lose a few minutes? Do you think there's one or two guys that maybe like could get bumped from the rotation altogether? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think what would be smart for Kenny is to not have Strus be, 30, 35 minutes like the other starters. I think Strus, to me, has kind of a, depending on where the game is, type of insert into the lineup. So if we need some more offensive production, all right, he's probably taking Sam Merrill's minutes, or, kind of maybe not LeVert, but I'm just trying to think through, maybe Niang's minutes get ticked down. If you need the defense, then you're definitely putting Okoro, Dean Wade, in whatever those flexible minutes are.
And Okoro's only at 21 minutes a game, so I think they're going to need his defense on so many nights. I don't imagine his minutes going down, really. To be honest, like, we all love him on this show, but like Dean Wade hasn't had that great a year. Like, at least from a statistical perspective, he has made really good contributions. He's definitely an underrated defender, makes all kinds of hustle plays, but from a straight stats offensive production, he's frankly has the worst kind of shooting percentages on the team. And the fact that he only shoots 42% from free throws drives me insane. But I'm hoping, he has had some injury issues, a couple to start the year, that maybe he works through some of that and we see kind of the Dean Wade we expect. I mean, he has an excellent 3-point shot. He could easily be one of these guys that's averaging around 40% from three. And he, unlike a lot of the other guys on the bench, he has the size that they kind of need when Mobley or Allen's off the floor. They need either him or Niang, because all the other guys are true kind of on the wings or on the smaller side of wings, that they can get away with maybe playing for those guards with Mobley or Allen for short stretches or against certain teams, but the majority of the time, they're not gonna be able to do that.
I agree. Yeah, like I said, I think it depends on where we are in the game. If we need that offensive production, he'll probably take minutes from some of those bench guys offensively. But if we need some defensive stops and defense in the game, I'm sure Dean Wade or Okoro will kind of take those bulk of minutes.
Yeah, for sure. All that's to say, what a great first 25 games. Like, we can't, obviously there's always things you can improve on, like, anything in basketball or in life. And there's a few things that the Cavs could work on. And frankly, the Cavs lit the world on fire the first 15 games. So if you're being honest, They're 6-4 in their last 10 games, and maybe that's a reason you can be a little bit more, critical and want to see an improvement in a couple areas. But overall, couldn't ask for a whole lot better from the team, from the coaching staff, and if they go 21-4 in their next 25, we'll be happy as can be.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, Skylar, let's talk again. The Cavs unfortunately did not qualify for the NBA Cup, but it is going on. There were some really good quarterfinal games, including the big controversy game with the Warriors. That was one of the worst endings to a game I've ever seen. But moving forward, on Saturday, the semifinals, it's the Hawks and the Bucks on the eastern side, and then the Rockets and the Thunder on the western side. What are your predictions, or who do you kind of expect to see maybe end up in the finals? Who do you expect to see win it? Like, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
I'm super excited about the West matchup. The Thunder are such a young, exciting team. I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that they're just so much fun. And the Rockets are kind of the out of nowhere team this year. I mean, they were terrible.
They're like the Thunder a year or two ago. That's what they got. Yeah.
And they're third in the West right now. So I think that's going to be such a fun matchup. And then on the East side, it's like the stark difference of teams. You know, you have the Hawks who will keep shooting even if they shouldn't be. They're just going to keep shooting. And a very defensive, stout team in the Bucks. Yeah. So I think it'll be a good, matchup to see if either the defense is going to be what wins it, or if you can kind of outshoot them.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to go against the Thunder because the Thunder they've been the best team in the West, one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league all year. You kind of look at this as set up for them, theirs to win. That said, I do think the Rockets, and honestly the Hawks is prototypical of NBA teams as you want nowadays. You want 6'8" wings who can shoot threes and are crazy athletic, and both those teams have them. So I like the Hawks to beat the Bucks, mostly because of I just think they have more guys and depth. As much as I love Giannis and everything, I see the Hawks winning. I'll give me Thunder, Hawks, and then Thunder beating the Hawks. I
was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, I think the Rockets have a really good chance to upset the Thunder, but in a tournament setting like this, there's all eyes are going to be on Vegas. There's going to be a lot of pressure and stuff. The Thunder are still a young team, but they went through a lot of the growing pains last year, and the Rockets haven't really gone through any yet. So. I'll take the Thunder to beat the Hawks in the Cup.
Yeah, I feel like the Rockets and the Hawks really had no expectations on their season this year. The Rockets and the Hawks.
Yeah,
I said that. Okay.
Yeah.
The Rockets and the Hawks kind of had no expectations this year. So they're kind of playing with free money. Literally.
The Hawks. It's interesting. They were it seemed like on the verge of a total teardown when they traded DeJounte Murray. They were talking about trading Trae Young, and then before you know it, all of these really good wings, for them, all are kind of healthy at the same time. Like Hunter has had a lot of injury concerns. Jalen Johnson's had a lot of injury concerns, but they're all really good players. I got Ricochet, who's been really impressive for as much flack as he got for being the number 1 pick. Dyson Daniels is a revelation, especially defensively for them.
Yeah.
So, the Hawks are the type of team, and Cavs know it. They're really annoying to play.
They are.
And if the Cavs don't have to see the Hawks in the playoffs, I won't lose any sleep over it. Just because the Cavs are the better team, but the Hawks are the bad matchup for the Cavs for some reason.
They really are. I mean, just those lengthy wings.
It is contrast to the Cavs and how the Cavs roster is. So, all right. Well, with that, we'll get out of here. We gave you we're going to always say we're going to cut this short. And then before you know it, we're at full time. And so, yeah, I guess we hadn't talked basketball for 4 days. So we should have known. But with that, we will be back tomorrow night. Cavs play the Wizards. The setup for that game. Don't lose. Don't be the team that loses to the Wizards. If the Cavs show up and they all wear shoes, they should.
The Wizards 1-9 in their last 10 games. So
yes, yeah, but crazier things happen in the NBA all the time. Like the Cavs have done very good at being focused all year, not taking any matchups for granted. I thought the closest thing to that was the Heat game on Sunday, but I mostly think the Heat was just like the worn down more than like lack of focus.
Yeah.
So I think, with 5 days rest, Max Strus coming back, I think the Cavs should take care of business nice and quick, and then get another few days off before the game Monday. So we will see you all tomorrow night. For Skylar Webker, I'm Kevin Lynch. Have a great night.
Go Cavs.